Welcome back, viewers. In the last two episodes, episode 9 and 10, we had discussed some reflections. And in episode 7, we were talking about how I was born in Punjab and then dad got an assignment with, I think, the Maharashtra government, wherein he was heading a project. So we had reached the Vankas bungalow and I had described it in episode 7. As I had mentioned earlier, this was a colonial bungalow constructed in Victorian times by a British officer, presumably, and then bought by a Parsi gentleman when the British left the country. And after that, I'm assuming the government took it over. Probably the guy had no heirs, no one to inherit the bungalow, so it belonged to the government. And this bungalow was given to dad to live in while he was working on this project. So if I have pieced it together correctly, the project that dad was working on was to create several acres of land into a project for underprivileged farmers. So underprivileged farmers would be given plots of land for farming along with little houses called units. So every farmer probably got land that had been cleared, and attached to this land was one single room house, kind of like a studio apartment, and it had a cute little veranda or a front yard, a nice raised cement front yard, and that's how I remember it. No kitchen, probably just the room and the veranda. And there were several such units, probably like 50 or 100, I'm not sure. So this was the project I think that dad was working on. And so dad was given this Vankas bungalow to live in, and like I had mentioned earlier, it was a U-shaped, very beautiful structure, and within the U-shape was this beautiful courtyard, open to sky, and then there was this lovely flight of stairs, and we lived on the left wing of this bungalow. And then the servant's family, if I remember correctly, his name was Shankar, and he lived there with his family. He lived in the right wing of that bungalow. It was so huge that we did not even occupy the back wing of it, and that was probably just for storage, I don't know. So in front of this bungalow, around it were probably the other employees' houses, and also there was one grocery store, I remember, and there were the shopkeepers. I remember we used to call them Mama and Mami. So dad's office was probably just a few steps away from this bungalow, and I probably don't have real memories of living there since I was very small when we lived there. But I do seem to have some memories. So I'm not sure if they are from, what my parents spoke about, and, then I kind of incorporated them as memories, or whether I actually remember some things. But I feel like I probably do remember certain things, because sometimes if an experience is very intense, like I lived there till I was probably 2.5 or 3 at the max. But still, I feel like some memories are intense and they are very real to me. Now, this bungalow itself, I remember it very well, because until I got married, we used to go there quite regularly for picnics, maybe once a year. So, my mom has this peculiar temperament wherein she likes to keep in touch with everybody she's ever met, and it's something she has to do, like an obsession, I don't know. She has, like I mentioned, she has many psychological conditions. I don't know if I should call them disorders, but she really needs to keep in touch with people. She needs to know that they're fine, where they're living, are they well, and that kind of stuff. So initially when we had moved out of the bungalow, we lived not very far away from it. So we used to go there quite regularly, and it was kind of like a picnic. We would go, we would see the bungalow, and we would visit Mama Mami, visit with them. Then there was a tall water tank nearby, and we would all climb that water tank, and then we would enjoy the lovely view from the top. Then after that we would go, there was a dam over there. We used to go to the dam, and we used to actually swim in that. Like Dad would have these rubber floaties for us, and we would get into those floaties and we would enjoy swimming in the dam. And then afterwards we would go to the guest house. The dam had a guest house attached to it, and we used to go to the guest house and like take a shower, freshen up. And so we used to have a nice outing whenever we would go to Vankas afterwards, when we were no longer living there. So later also, my parents would keep taking, like when my sister got married, she and her husband, my parents took them to visit the place. It was kind of like a pilgrimage / picnic for us. Like we would just enjoy the day over there, going, just looking at it nostalgically. And then that is why it was very sad for me to watch it slowly crumble. So apparently we were the last residents over there, and the bungalow belonged to the government. The government had taken it over. And then after that, whenever we would go there, we would just see like it was completely neglected, and it had strong bones. It was built during the Victorian era, very, very beautiful structure, very nicely built. But then what could you do if there's complete neglect, right? How long would it stand? So we would go, we would see it slowly crumble and kind of feel sad about it. So I remember once when I was in my 20s, probably 24, 25, and I had a job, I had some savings. And when I saw the bungalow and how it was, just falling apart, I felt so sad, and I loved it so much. I told my family, hey, you know what, let me just buy this, I can afford it, and I will live here. And then my dad kind of scolded me. He's like, what will you do over here? Just living in this bungalow, there's nothing around it, literally absolutely nothing. Just the bungalow itself is something that's lovely here, and other than that, what will you do? So then after he scolded me, I kind of just left that idea alone. I did not think of that again. Much later, more recently, my sister had taken her family again, her 2 kids and her husband, to the bungalow. And there her son picked up one wall stone. I don't know if it was a stone or a brick. So as a memento, as a souvenir, her son picked up one stone that this was from the bungalow in which my mother grew up, and he had kept it in their balcony. But what happened was they had some painting work going on the outside of the building. So one of the workers who was working on the scaffolding, he just broke that thing which was in their balcony. So that was a little sad, but what you're gonna do? So my parents also wanted to take me and my husband, just the way they had taken my older sister and her husband to the bungalow. They loved the idea of everyone going together to places. My dad loves to drive to different places. He has driven to so many parts of the country. So they loved the idea of taking my sister and her husband, me and my husband, and all of us going somewhere on a pilgrimage or a long drive. But then things didn't happen with my family. That's a whole different story. My husband's temperament. So let's not go there now. So that did not happen. They were not able to take me and my husband to visit the place. Other things were happening in our lives to prevent that. So my sister and her husband and her family, they have been there more recently, and it is completely breaking down now. And it was painful to watch the slow deterioration of the bungalow from complete neglect. So now let's go back to when we lived over there. So when we lived over there, I can only use conjecture to figure out what Dad did over there. Like in my opinion, around our bungalow were the staff quarters, like I said, and Mama Mummy's shop, and Dad's office very nearby. And then he worked on that Dapchari project. Now Dapchari is a place in Thane district, and one of the landmarks would be Talasari. It's near a place called Talasari. And I remember one place we used to visit on our way driving there from Bombay would be Parsi Dairy Farm. So that is one landmark I remember. Was there also a place called Valsad nearby? I'm not very sure. So Dad was the one who got that entire Dapchari project done, which was meant for underprivileged farmers, and that land would be given to them for cultivation on lease for about 30 years or so, and they were given an interest-free loan or something like that, a very cheap, they had to pay a very low price, and they would get that land, and they just and a lot of times the loans were just excused, like they didn't even have to repay those loans. So that is what that Dapchari project was. It was just to help those underprivileged farmers. They would be awarded that land based on certain criteria being met, and then later they were allowed to resell. They could sell that to someone else if they wanted to. So now let's get back to some of the incidents that I remember from the bungalow life, which I find quite interesting. So one of the things I have is a picture of me standing on the bungalow steps. I'm all dressed up and I have this braids with ribbons in my hair, and I'm just standing there kind of frowning. So I feel like that was a cute picture that I have in my memory. And now another curious incidence of living over there was once, and this I feel is a real memory and not just a fabricated or memory that I've heard from other people. I feel like I clearly remember this happening. So apparently it was afternoon, and I was on the left side of the bungalow, and I wanted to cross over to Shankar's side to play with his kids probably, or just to play with them. And what I did was I started walking across the courtyard, and halfway through my feet started burning so badly that I couldn't take it anymore, and I started crying, and I turned around and ran back or walked back. So now it gets a little weird for me because I feel like I was scolded, and I'm thinking, like, I was told that the amount of steps you took to come back, with your feet burning, the same amount of steps you could have taken to cross over to the other side. And I'm all upset, I'm crying, I'm a little 2 or 2.5-year-old child. I've had this bad experience for the first time in my life. I got to know that, the sun heats up the stone so much, and I had this nasty burning in my feet, and I had run back traumatized and crying. And I feel like there could have been so many other responses. Someone could have just come across and picked me up. Apparently they were just standing there watching this whole thing happen. It probably happened really fast, but still I felt like the parents could have had so many other ways to respond. They could have explained to me that you could have walked around the shady part, you could have walked around instead of across, then your feet wouldn't have burned. Maybe they could have told me next time wear slippers if it's afternoon and then walk across. There could have been so many responses. But I find it very curious that a 2 or 3-year-old was scolded for not knowing that she could have just walked across the rest of the way instead of running back screaming and crying. So I don't know if you would call this gaslighting, and why would a parent treat the child like that? I don't know. So this was one incident that I remember as an unpleasant thing that was burnt into my memory. Another incident that happened was And this is I think it's so clear in my mind. I don't know if it's an actual memory, but in my mind I feel, oh, this is so clear. So what happened was, again in that bungalow, one evening or night, my parents showed me brand new shoes they had bought me. So I remember it as the most beautiful shoes I had ever seen. They were red, shiny shoes, and I was so fascinated. I found them so beautiful, and I told my parents I want to try them on. So then apparently they said, no, try it on in the morning when you wake up. And I told them, no, the shoes won't be there when I wake up in the morning. And they were like, no, the shoes will be there. You can't try them now. You need to try them only in the morning. And apparently I was very upset, and I was like, no, I want to try them now. They won't be there in the morning. They won't be there in the morning. And the parents kept saying, oh, no, you try them in the morning. Don't try them now. And in my mind, I went to bed very upset that I could not try on the shoes. Then I woke up and went running to the shoe shelf. And of course there were no red shoes. So I was very upset and crying, and my parents came running. They were like, what happened? And I was like, you didn't let me try the shoes, and now they're not there. I knew they wouldn't be there. And my parents are like, you probably had a dream. And I was like, no, it was not a dream. I just wanted to wear my red shoes. And I was so inconsolable. I was crying so much, and I was like, my red shoes. I wanted to try them, and you wouldn't let me try them. And my poor parents didn't know what to do. I was so upset and crying so much. I think I was bawling. And then, I think just to stop me from crying, my dad put his hand on my mouth, just to stop me from crying. There was no ill intention. This is what I remember. And then I couldn't breathe, because I guess if you'd been crying, your nose is anyway your sinuses are all swollen up. And then I just couldn't get a breath, and that probably happened just for a few seconds. But I remember not being able to breathe. So I was already upset, I was already crying, and then I couldn't breathe. Oh no. So that is one more incident that has just stayed in my mind, seems to be embedded very deep. Then there is one more interesting incident I remember from the Vankas bungalow. So it seems once early in the morning we were to travel to some place, and then we were standing at the bus stop with our stuff. And now the bus stop had just a very basic shelter, right? And then a storm started, and it happened in minutes. Like suddenly everywhere it was dark, and then there was wind swirling, terrible raindrops, and I think hailstones also. So within minutes, suddenly we were caught in the midst of a terrible storm. And I'm looking on, very interested, and telling my mom, you know what? Last night, this exact thing happened in my dream. Like we were standing at the bus stop, and there's this storm raging around us. And do you know what my mom's response was? This is so interesting and curious. Mom scolded me saying, if you had this dream, why didn't you tell us before? And here I am confused and thinking, wait, I'm standing here at the bus stop. Suddenly the storm has come about out of nowhere. And then it triggers my memory that yes, this exact thing happened in my dream. And I am being scolded for not sharing this dream earlier. I'm like, what just happened? So that was again something I thought, really, did I need to be scolded for that, for not telling them that I had the exact same dream? So these were my memories from the Vankas bungalow, which I find kind of curious and interesting. So these are the memories that stand out in my mind from living over there. So that was about living in the bungalow. I don't seem to remember other things. Oh yeah, I remember once there was again a storm. I think that place did have storms. And the ceiling was not like the kind of ceilings we have now. It was those asbestos sheets. And when there was a storm, the rain used to hit those sheets and make such a loud noise. So I remember that. I must have been between 2 and 3 when mom and dad had to have a discussion about their next move, because the project was done, it was wrapped up, the land and houses had been handed over to the underprivileged farmers, and then mom and dad had to have a discussion about next steps. So we will talk more about this in the next video. Until then, please like my video, please subscribe to my channel, and please click the notification bell icon so that you know when I upload my next video. So I'll see you next time with a continuation of my story. Until then, stay well, be happy. I'll see you soon, dear viewers. Bye bye. Bye for now.